There are moments in the history of science where silence speaks louder than any explosion, and this was one of them. It wasn't a cosmic catastrophe or a flash of light that caught the attention of scientists, but the exact opposite, a profound and unsettling stillness. The James Webb Space Telescope, suspended in space a million miles from Earth, was engaged in a routine observation of a sector long thought to be lifeless, a stretch of the universe that, until now, had been dismissed as empty space between galaxies. But the telescope's infrared eyes caught something no one could have anticipated. A darkness unlike any black hole, a shadow that neither absorbed nor reflected light. It seemed to erase it. This darkness did more than just sit in space. It moved. Slowly, intentionally. As if it was aware of being watched. The Webb telescope recorded its movements in chilling detail, and what followed forced entire teams of astrophysicists and mathematicians to re-evaluate their most fundamental beliefs. Because this wasn't a celestial body. It wasn't a pulsar or a distant quasar. It was something different. Something that behaved with purpose. Something that seemed to be observing us in return. The anomaly was first detected near a region known as the Aerodana supervoid, a place already surrounded by mystery for its unusually low density of galaxies and inexplicable cold zones. During a deep field calibration intended for galaxy mapping, the telescope picked up a perfectly circular disturbance in space. It wasn't an ordinary void, it was complete. No light passed through it. No gravitational lensing distorted the galaxies behind it. It was as if a hole had been punched in reality itself. Imagine pouring a drop of ink into a glass of water, only to watch the entire glass vanish. That's the kind of disruption the data revealed. At first, some theorized that it might be a rare form of black hole. But that theory quickly crumbled. There were no gravitational waves. No X-ray bursts. No high-energy emissions of any kind. It wasn't just an absence of matter, it was an absence of physics. And that silence grew stranger still when, over several days, the perimeter of the anomaly began to fluctuate, not randomly, but rhythmically. Like something was breathing. Light echoes began to ripple out from the surrounding area, and these faint distortions carried patterns, clear sequences that aligned with prime numbers. First 2, then 3, 5, 7, 11. This wasn't natural. No known astrophysical phenomenon produces such signals. And even more unnerving, the signal wasn't being emitted as light, sound, or any known form of radiation. It was a physical ripple in spacetime itself. Webb's gyroscopes, designed to track even the smallest shifts in orientation, began registering subtle but consistent nudges in sync with each pulse. The universe itself was being poked, softly, repeatedly, as if someone, or something, was knocking from the other side. As more data poured in, quantum physicists were brought on board to decipher the patterns. What they discovered was staggering. The pulses weren't chaotic. They were deliberate. Mathematically precise. Not just a phenomenon of the cosmos, but a signature of intention. The rhythms didn't resemble anything found in nature. They were constructed, engineered. And then came the most shocking observation of all. 27 days after the anomaly was first recorded, it moved. Not like an asteroid drifting or a star being pulled by gravity, but with a precision that defied physics. It didn't travel across space. Whatever this was, it wasn't limited by distance. It wasn't bound by light speed. It moved as if space itself were optional. The only comparison scientists could draw came from quantum mechanics, the entanglement effect, where subatomic particles react to each other instantly across space. But this wasn't a subatomic particle. This was a structure the size of a moon behaving like it was playing by a completely different rulebook. Simulations were run to predict where the object might appear next. The result was alarming. Its new locations, when mapped over time, formed a spiral, each shift pointing closer to Earth. Not fast. Not aggressive. But intentional. And then something even stranger happened. Around the anomaly, patterns began to emerge. Fractal shapes. Self-repeating formations that seemed to grow and evolve depending on where Webb was pointing. Not biological, but eerily similar to neural networks. The structure wasn't just reacting to being observed. It was adapting. The term coined by researchers was responsive geometry, a theoretical concept suggesting that some structures could adjust their form in reaction to observation. But no one had ever actually witnessed such a thing. It was like staring into a mirror and watching the reflection change independently. Some began to speculate that the object was not merely a visitor, but an anchor, something placed intentionally in our universe. Not moving toward anything, but waiting. Holding its position. Possibly signaling. AI models were fed the data in hopes of extracting a pattern or translation. Every model failed, except one. And it didn't give a translation. It returned a single, unsettling word: recognized. That was the turning point. The idea that this wasn't a signal waiting to be discovered, but a response to something already sent. Then, the background of the anomaly started to shift. A faint radiation emerged, barely detectable at first. Unlike anything previously recorded, it didn't match the cosmic microwave background, or the energetic signatures of quasars or supernovae. This signal echoed the object's pulses, only delayed. It was like hearing an echo from a canyon so vast the return came weeks later. Scientists analyzed the signal and found something impossible. The frequencies were harmonically structured. Layered in ways that matched the intervals of musical chords. It wasn't random. It didn't behave like any stellar event. There was no randomness, no chaos. What emerged was an engineered rhythm, precise, intentional. The waveform wasn't just stable, it was responsive. Every time the James Webb Space Telescope adjusted its position, the harmonics shifted slightly in return. This wasn't a passive signal floating through the vacuum. It was interactive. A reflection, or worse, a reaction. Whatever was out there wasn't just transmitting. It was listening. Behind the scenes, tension escalated. A specialized group of theoretical mathematicians was brought in to analyze the structure of the pulses. That's when the true depth of the anomaly began to unfold. Embedded in the timing of the distortions was a mathematical pattern that had never been observed in any natural cosmic phenomenon: the Lemur prime spiral. A structure theorists have studied for decades. It plots prime numbers in a spiral formation that strangely echoes natural forms like the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower or the arms of galaxies. And yet here it was, hidden in the pulse intervals from an object millions of light years away. To many on the team, it felt deliberate, a kind of mathematical signature. A calling card. Or perhaps something more unsettling, an identifier. A statement not just of presence but of intelligence. The realization deepened when the pulses were rendered into a three-dimensional model. What emerged stunned even the most skeptical minds. The shape resembled a double helix, nearly identical to the structure of human DNA. At first, some dismissed it as coincidence. But further analysis revealed something far more precise. The time intervals in the pulses weren't arbitrary. They matched codons, the sequences of three nucleotides that form the genetic instructions in living organisms. Whatever had generated this signal didn't just know physics. It understood biology. And it might have known us, long before we knew it. Suddenly, the flow of information began to slow. The previously open data streams from the Webb telescope experienced unexplained delays. Logs from major observatories began disappearing without notice. Key scientists quietly stepped away from their positions. Agencies that had been transparent and enthusiastic now issued statements filled with vague reassurances. Behind closed doors, international organizations, including NASA, the European Space Agency, and even private companies like SpaceX, held emergency meetings. Not because the object posed an immediate threat, but because they could no longer rule out the possibility that it was already among us. Theories took shape and multiplied. Some thought the object might be a probe, quietly monitoring intelligent life. Others believed it could be a beacon, a sentry marking a territory, or perhaps signaling back to its origin. But perhaps the most chilling theory was the simplest one. It had always been there, invisible until we had the tools to perceive it. The timing seemed too perfect. Only once humanity developed an eye powerful enough to see it, only then did it appear. But even that assumption crumbled under closer scrutiny. Decades-old probes like Voyager and New Horizons had passed near this region of space. Neither recorded any anomalies. This suggested two disturbing possibilities. Either the object had arrived recently, or worse, it had been there all along, cloaked from all but the most advanced instruments. Then came the silence. On the 48th day of focused observation, just as the telescope was scheduled to shift focus to a new region of space, the pulses vanished. No more distortions. No gravitational anomalies. just static. It was as if the object had never been there. But just before that silence fell, Webb captured one final image, 3 frames in infrared, lasting only milliseconds. The image showed something never before seen in any part of the known universe. Not a shadow. Not a void. But a shape, clear, symmetrical, angular. It looked like a sigil suspended in space. Triangles nested within circles, intersected by thin lines. A recursive pattern perfectly proportioned. Too brief for full analysis. But advanced AI systems tasked with decoding it didn't see randomness. They saw geometry. Structure. Intent. Then it was gone. The silence that followed was different. It wasn't just the absence of signal. It was the weight of realization. That whatever this was, whatever had made contact, had chosen to stop letting us observe it. It hadn't left. It had simply stepped out of view. And now, the question lingers in every corner of the scientific community. What did James Webb truly see? Was it a message? A mechanism? A mirror? Some believe it was a watcher, patiently observing from the deepest shadows of the cosmos. Others fear it was a test, waiting to be noticed, perhaps waiting for a reply. But the most terrifying possibility of all is that it wasn't a message sent across space. It was a reply to one we didn't know we sent. The more we study the universe, the more it seems to respond. We once thought we were looking into the void. Now it feels like the void is looking back. This wasn't just an astronomical event. It was a confrontation with the limits of human understanding. The James Webb Telescope didn't just collect data. It opened a door into a region of the universe that defies everything we thought we knew. A region where communication doesn't require language, where information travels through mathematics, geometry, and rhythm. A region where silence has meaning. And now that the door is open, the only question that remains is, are we ready for what's on the other side?